So next up, podcast listeners, Brian Stelter of CNN says he's told, actually, he should book more conservatives on his show. So Brian Stelter says and is told that he should book more conservatives on his show. So CNN's long-serving executive, Rick Davis, he's a long-serving executive there. He's now retiring. So Rick Davis has been there for, I think, 40 years or thereabouts. And he's the executive vice president of standards and practices at CNN. What is that? Standards and practices. So Rick Davis, he speaks with Brian Stelter on the air to discuss his 40 years in cable news and at CNN. And Rick Davis has been there since Reliable Source, which is, of course, the show that Brian Stelter hosts on CNN. He's been there since that show started, Rick Davis has. Obviously, Brian Stelter hasn't. He's considerably younger. So Stelter is interviewing Davis to try to get some wisdom about, why CNN is so, successful and so forth. Well, first off, here is Davis talking to Brian Stelter about his history at CNN. We have multiple clips on this, and here is the first.
The triad really is a combination of our colleagues on the row, which are senior editors, veteran journalists who've been working in the business for a long time, the legal department, and standards. And frankly, we triple team these tough stories and challenge our colleagues to make sure what they're doing is accurate. What have they left out? What do they need to go back and check out? Have they been fair to the other side? And that's really what's, CNN's main asset is its credibility and its trust. And I think certainly the way the audiences have come to us on television and digital, particularly in the last year, particularly in the last quarter, particularly in the last month, shows that they trust these three red letters to deliver news that's accurate.
So that is Mr. Davis, Rick Davis, who's retiring at CNN. That is him giving his view of CNN. CNN is trusted. It's reliable, especially that reliable source program of Brian Stelter. And that's why more and more people are coming to CNN. Well, actually, during the past 6 months especially, that actually happens to be true because so many conservative viewers are incredibly upset with Fox News. There might be some other reasons too, which we can't fully understand why anyone would want to move and watch CNN. Maybe it's just temporarily out of protest against Fox. But nonetheless, they're upset with Fox for a variety of reasons, which we've gone into many times before. So Brian Stelter asked, well, what should this program do more of? So Stelter is asking, of course, longtime executive Rick Davis, what should Reliable Source, which I, Brian Stelter, host, what should we do more of to be, more successful? And we had that response, and here it is.
What do you think this program should be doing more of?
I'd have to think about that. It's a tough question. More of, I think, frankly, yes, I can tell you that. I think you need to strive to have more voices on the show from right of center. Responsible voices from right of center on the show. And I think from occasionally when you want to have some newsmakers on who can express to you how they feel about the media, particularly if they feel like the media got it wrong, and let them talk about it.
So that's CNN pivoting, of course, because naturally for the 4 years of Donald Trump, CNN had lost their minds, and so had Brian Stelter, of course, with their incredibly biased reporting. But now that CNN has the president in place that they want, and they are actually gaining viewership, now suddenly they want to appear as if they're tacking to the middle. And so this gentleman, of course, Rick Davis, says to Brian Stelter, well, what you really need is you need more voices from the right, but they need to be right of center. Not from the right. They need to be right of center, and they need to be responsible voices. Responsible. I guess he's talking about, Governor Larry Hogan of Maryland or Senator Mitt Romney of Utah. He's talking about, those slightly right of center, and they're not right of center voices. Those are they are left of center voices. And, some people, of course, on the left, of course, might see them as right of center. They're not. But CNN, that's where they want to be because they want to capture more viewers now that they've got Joe Biden in the White House. They want to act as though, we've always been so centrist. We've always been so fair. And now that Biden is there, we're going to be able to show everybody that we actually do care about journalistic integrity. So here's Stelter's wrap up of that interview. You're going to crack up. We have a clip on it, and here it is.
And Rick will keep on giving through several scholarships he is endowed and a new fellowship in journalism established by CNN at UMD. Rick's team stays in place, and Calvin Sims takes over tomorrow, keeping CNN's standards high. Thank you, Rick, for making us a reliable source.
Keeping the standards high at CNN. And Stelter is saying that, Rick Davis, he's retiring. After 40 years, Rick Davis is retiring at CNN. So therefore, we're going to have an endowed scholarship at the University of Maryland College Park, where you can learn journalism in his name, and your entire tuition will be covered by the scholarship, and then presumably then you go work at CNN. Really, here's the problem: by learning journalism in colleges, I think that's actually made journalism weaker and worse, because you have all these people over at CNN who allegedly went to college and studied journalism, and including Brian Stelter, and when you watch them, they're clearly not fair and balanced, and we all know that. Nonetheless, it's undeniable, podcast listeners, that they are gaining in viewership. They are. More people are going to that network, and so many people are leaving and not watching Fox News anymore. So that is nonetheless happening. But I thought you would enjoy that little interview with Brian Stelter and Rick Davis about, they really are all about journalistic integrity now that Biden's back in the office. And that is Brian Stelter to book more conservatives on his show.